Hey, what's up? Welcome to virtual conference. My name is Rob Bradford. I'm currently the Dean of Students at a middle school out in Seattle called Billings Middle School, where I work with young people and hang out with middle schoolers all day long. So yeah, our theme this weekend, I know it's a little different doing it virtually, but our theme this weekend actually comes from the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 5. And this is a cool Bible. It's called The Voice. It's actually a gift given to me by my friend Tyler Domsky. And so I'm going to read the verse that is our theme verse, and I'm going to read some stuff around it, and I'm going to talk for a little bit. So let's see how it goes. So this is chapter 5, verses 1 through 10. We know that if our earthly house, a mere tent that can easily be taken down, is destroyed, we will then live in an eternal home in the heavens, a builded, crafted by divine, not human hands. Currently, in this tent of a house, we continue to groan and ache with a deep desire to be sheltered in our permanent home, because then we will truly be clothed and comfortable, protected by a covering for our current nakedness. The fact is that in this tent, we anxiously moan, fearing the naked truth of our reality. What we crave above all is to be clothed, so that what is temporary and mortal can be wrapped completely in life. The one who has worked and tailored us for this is God himself, who has gifted his Spirit to us as a pledge toward our permanent home. In light of this, we live with a daring passion and know that our time spent in this body is also time we are not present with the Lord. The path we walk is charted by faith, not by what we see with our eyes. There is no doubt that we live with a daring passion, but in the end, we prefer to be gone from this body so that we can be at home with the Lord. Ultimately, it does not matter whether we are here or gone. Our purpose stays fixed, and that is to please God. In time, we will all stand in judgment before the throne of the Anointed, the liberating King, to receive what is just for our conduct, whether it be good or bad, while we lived in this temporary body. Now, that's a lot. I know that's a lot. We're not going to have time to unpack it all. If you want to keep reading, keep reading. It's pretty awesome. The book of 2 Corinthians was written by a guy named Paul. And so this was written to the church in Corinth. It was a very specific letter written to a very specific church. But the thing I want to focus on right here is this verse right here. And the one that says it is that the path we walk is charted by faith, not by what we see with our eyes. Now, I'm sitting here in this tent for a reason. I don't know if you guys have ever been camping, but I love camping. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so all we do is go camping. We can camp in the Cascades, or we can camp in the Olympic coast. We like to camp up mountains, or we can camp on water. We love to backpack, hike, do the whole thing. It's what we do. One of the things that I do not love about camping, though, if I'm being completely honest, is sleeping in a tent. I like my house. I like my bedroom. I like my bed. A tent does not give me any of those things. This tent that we just put up, somebody was sitting here telling me, I don't know if I want to go outside in this tent. It's going to be cold. As you can see, there are seams everywhere, and like there's air coming in. Now, if it's hot outside, it's great. You get the air coming in. But if it's cold, if it's below 50, then that cold air is just bristling through. Tents are kind of rough. The other thing that I want to think about is that when we wake up in the morning, I don't know about you, but whenever I go camping, my sleep schedule is all messed up. I usually go to bed way earlier because the sun goes down, sit around the campfire, and go to bed at 9:30 or 10. That usually has me waking up around 5 or 5:30. If I'm being honest, it's me doing everything I can to jump out of the tent, out of my sleeping bag, throw on some shoes, and go to the bathroom. That's every single morning when I go camping. I don't know why. But the thing that I've noticed more than anything when I go camping and I first wake up, it doesn't matter how many nights I've been there. When I wake up in the morning after camping, the first thing I realize is I almost always realize that I don't actually know where I am. I wake up kind of in a stupor. Have you ever woken up in a stupor, like, where am I? Like if you're spending the night at a friend's house, or if you're at summer camp, or you're doing something, or maybe you're at conference, and you wake up and you're like, this is not my house. This is not my room. That's what I do every time I wake up camping. So that's the first thing I do. And the second thing I get my bearings and I figure it out and I try to find a light. Because I have to be able to see. And I realize that that light is so important for me. To be able to get my bearings and to get things figured out so that I can go to the bathroom. The whole key here, remember, the whole focus here is I'm trying to get to the bathroom. So I grab a headlamp. Headlamp's the best so then I can use my hands. I throw on some shoes, some sort of warm something so I can go out and get to the bathroom. And I get out there and I realize that even as I go out there with this headlamp on, I still can't see everything. The thing that I'm most concerned about is the guidelines from the tent. I'm going back to the problem with the tent here. I don't know about you, I've tripped over guidelines like 4 or 5 times in my life. Sometimes just enough to pull the tent stakes out and annoy the people in the tent and annoy myself. I have to hammer them back in. Sometimes to the point that I have literally fallen over. And there is not much worse for me in the world than being half awake, half dressed, in the middle of the morning night at 5 o'clock in the morning, tripping onto the ground and getting wet on that dewy, nasty grass or dirt because I tripped over a guideline because I couldn't see. On the good days, I know where the guidelines are. I'm the one that made the tent. So I know where they are. I remember where they are. Some would even say, this is cheesy, but maybe I'm walking by faith at that point. Now, that's the thing that I'm asking us to do here. So as we read this verse, as we think about our theme verse for this weekend, our theme verse for this weekend is that we walk by faith. It was chosen very purposely because this year is 2020. And so the idea of having 2020 vision and that even when we're blind, we can still walk by faith. And I think about that verse a lot, and I think it's often been translated with this idea that we should just go and do what God asks us to do, even if it doesn't make sense to us. And I think that's one great interpretation. Another interpretation that I think is an interesting one is that we know that there are things in the world that are not right. And it's not just because we read our Bible. Like, we can see these things, and we can see people that are hurting. We can talk to individuals that tell us that their life isn't right, and that their life isn't good, and that things aren't good. And sometimes, maybe we don't believe those statistics. Maybe we don't believe those people. Maybe our pastor or our teacher or our politicians are telling us, don't believe that person that's hurting. They're just not helping themselves. They're not pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, so things aren't good enough for them. They're just not being able to figure it out. But here's what I say. What if we had the faith to listen to those people who are hurting? What if that's what Jesus is asking us to do? What if what Jesus is saying is for us to go, I'm going to walk by that faith. I'm going to live by that faith, that Jesus came for the marginalized and that Jesus came for the least of these, as we've heard before in some scripture. And so that's the faith that I'm going to walk by. So when I get up in the middle of this tent and I have to go to the bathroom and I'm pulling everything on and I'm pulling on a hat because it's cold and I'm trying not to trip over the guidelines, maybe the goal of what I'm trying to get to is to live by the faith that the world is not perfect and that Jesus has asked me to help everybody and to love people in a way that maybe I don't understand and that maybe doesn't always feel right, but that I know it's right because that's what Jesus asked us to do. So that's what I'm going to ask you to do this weekend. We're going to talk more about it. We're going to jump into it more. Maybe we'll spend some nights in the tent as we're out here this weekend. It's only Friday. We got Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. A little quip that you might not know this. This is called a New Wilmington Mission Conference historical tidbit. There used to be so many high school kids that would come to conference and they didn't have as many dorms on Westminster's campus that all of the boys had to sleep in tents outside. So the girls were in the dorms and the boys were in this big, huge yard area where they slept in tents. I'm not quite old enough to have done that when I was in high school. When I was in high school, we were in dorms. But just 5-6 years before me, the high school boys were sleeping out in tents. Think about how far we've come at conference. I think that's interesting. So buckle up for all that we're going to be doing this week, and hopefully it's going to be awesome.